Hello, and welcome to Teach Time in the Afternoon, where I, Miss Adventure in the Classroom, talk about my ripe critical knowledge building system. And actually, I should have set up my camera a little better so we can see all the posters. There we go. So, ripe critical knowledge building system is an exciting new resource that is going to be live this weekend. So, soon in the description, there will be a link to where you can purchase this awesome classroom system to help you make more space for those things that really matter and are critical. So, we have spent the week going through. On Monday, we talked about the system in general. And then we worked our way through reverence, imagining, problematizing, and today we're on enhancing. So we're going to be talking about what it means to enhance knowledge and why this is such a critical part of critical knowledge building. So let's go ahead and dive in on enhance. So again, this is the final step of the critical knowledge building system, but real fast before we get into all the deets, you should know that the cycle doesn't stop. This isn't the period, the end all be all, full stop. Because in fact, I'd say once you've done this enhancement step, you're going to want to cycle through again and revere it, imagine how your enhancement could be different, problematize your enhancement, and enhance upon the enhancement. So this is not the end of the knowledge building cycle. In fact, it's just the beginning of a whole new cycle where you start this process all over again. So this isn't the end. This isn't the finale. This is just putting a cherry on top. This is leveling up the power of this knowledge. So that's what it says right up here. We're building on the good, fixing the bad, and doing awesome things. That's my elementary way of presenting enhance. And let me say that I am an elementary educator. Does that surprise anyone? I have a particular style, but I have created these to be for any age group. So, yes, this is simple language that could be used in any young classroom, but I also think that you can get a lot of fruitful things with older classes too. So, let's talk about, I've brought up two interesting terms here right out of the gates that we normally people get uncomfortable talking about in school, which, yeah, I know why, and we can trace the history of why, but they're wrong. And I'm going to explain why. So, I am particularly talking about good and bad. Yes, I am making those claims. Build on the good, fix the bad. How dare I? How dare I, as an educator, have the audacity to claim I know what's good and bad? Yeah, no, that's not what this is. This isn't about the teacher coming in and saying, these things are good and these things are bad, children, and we shall treat this as good and this as bad. There are some things that are undeniably humanizing, like being kind to one another. How this is a really important part of the educator's work is social awareness, right? Especially in younger grades, I can tell you. And it doesn't change as you get older. Part of school is learning how to interact with other people. And there are some claims that we can make that are true. Pushing the kid ahead of you is bad. But here's the thing. Is pushing a person always bad? No, it depends on the context. Let me explain. Noam Chomsky tends to use the example all the time. He's of the anarchist tradition, and he always goes back. Seriously, watch any video. He might mention it, probably he will, about how one of the anarchist values that he holds so deeply is do no harm, right? No other person can do any harm to anyone else. That's really important. Okay, so pushing a person, you might say, is always doing harm. Well, he talks about how it's okay to harm if you're walking along the sidewalk with your child and they're about to step into the street and there's a car coming in the way. Like, yeah, yanking their arm and pulling them out of the way of complete annihilation. Yeah, obviously it would have been better if we had caught it earlier and not had to pull on the child's arm, but ultimately it was a humanizing act. So that's the thing about good and bad is like, yes, when something is humanizing and it uplifts humanity, it is good. And when it dehumanizes, it is bad. But individual actions cannot be universally categorized in those terms. And no teacher should be doing it in those terms. Like, yes, obviously, when they're young, pushing bad, yes. And we can have and should have, I'd say, have critical conversations around when pushing would be okay, right? If you're on the playground and a motorcycle's coming through somehow, like, yeah, push your friend out of the way. That's the humanizing thing to do. Don't be like, oh no, pushing's bad. In most cases, yes. But good and bad is a discussion and it's based on the context. So I'm not saying here these things are good and these things are bad. It is a constant discussion and it is a constant contextual discussion, aka depending on the circumstance. So that's the kind of conversation that I'm trying to have here. I'm not trying to preach to kids, though, again, social consciousness and awareness about what is humanizing. Yes, teachers do have to engage in that work. Hello. People who say that have never spent a moment in a classroom. I mean, yes, we do not want to be pushing particular moral agendas on people. No. But here's the thing about morality, it's one of our critical capacities. We can all critically think naturally, and we're all naturally moral, aka, we all naturally have a sense of how to interact, how we would like to be treated, and how we'd like others to be treated. I won't go down a whole thing about morality because I could, and I'll stop myself. But there are elements of the educator's work that are undeniably moral because our work is undeniably social. And we have to socialize kids not in a mechanistic, standardized, this is the only way. Instead, it needs to be liberating. Like, hey, yeah, pushing's bad, but not in, let's think about when pushing wouldn't be bad. See how that's a much more interesting conversation anyway? Where we can think, oh my gosh, okay, if we begin to look at when pushing would be good, then we can really understand the difference between humanization and dehumanization, which is really, if I could have fit that, which I wouldn't, because good and bad are concepts kids are aware of. And yes, correct, we shouldn't limit ourselves to good and bad as adults. Those aren't very useful concepts once you reach a certain age. It really is more about humanization and dehumanization. But kids know that as good and bad. So, as an adult, as the teacher in the room, you should know that you're talking about the good is humanization and the bad is dehumanization. I think that's pretty simple. But it's a complex term for kids. So, instead, we say build on the good, fix the bad, and do awesome things. And again, I do not expect that everyone in your classroom will agree on what is good and what is bad. That's also not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to spark interesting conversations about and guide kids on this journey to be more humanizing. There are a million good things that we could explore on, and there are a million bad things that we could eliminate. So there is not one right or wrong way to humanize and enhance. So that's what I mean by do awesome things. Do your own awesome things. So these posters are really nice to have up in your room, and these prompts are helpful. So remember, good and bad, little quaint. Humanization and dehumanization is better. But in order to enhance, we're going to pull from the past. So what are those awesome things from the past? perhaps we've lost some of those awesome things along the way. I'd argue, yes, we've lost a lot of really good traditions, have fallen to the wayside. And so there's all sorts of good things in the past that maybe haven't been continually upkept this whole time. There are lots of bad things from the past that we should leave in the past, right? So as we're searching for good things left behind, we should also note, no, you know what? That's best staying in the past and not being brought into the future. It's important to keep these concepts good and bad. I know it's tough, but it matters. Okay, so also to enhance, we're going to transform the present. So we're going to build on the good things right now. And let's fix the bad things right now. In this moment, what are bad things? And then we're going to construct the future. And so this is, again, as I said, knowledge building. So whatever lesson you're presenting, the whole point of the critical knowledge building system is to evoke the identity of problem solver and knowledge builder in our students. The critical tradition sees knowledge as a great legacy. Knowledge is historic. Humans have been shaping it this whole time. We didn't just stumble across knowledge, we had to puzzle with it, and we had to figure out how it worked. And then we had to articulate it to others and pass it on to others. Even if one person did uncover something, they had to share it in language with words already known by their peers. So already, even if you had come up with a new idea, as that idea leaves your mouth, it's already historical in that those words were created before you by flawed humans, and those words may have harmful elements. So even if you've got this great new idea, you might be passing on some old harmful ideas in that knowledge. It's also social, right? So historical, as in those words are from the past, but also you are speaking to others. We can't have knowledge if it isn't social. uh, you can all by yourself, but it won't be part of our shared legacy unless you share it. So there are things you know in your head that's knowledge known only to you, but it won't make a difference in the material world. We've talked a lot this week about how it is necessary in order for things to matter to history, to society, that they leave the mind, they leave the heart, they leave the soul, and they enter this realm that we all share, the realm of history, the realm of society, the realm of materials, right? Outside the abstract. So, because knowledge building is part of this historical social legacy, we want kids to feel part of it. Not that the legacy's already over. Like, let's sit back and watch this movie about knowledge. Yay, humans, they already did everything they need to do about science. We've done all the science, check. Hey, we've done all the math, check. Just sit back, enjoy it. No, we want kids to be active participators. Like, hey, guess what? You are part of this story. I actually have two of my things I should grab. Hold on. I have better examples. Here we go. These are two things that I'm going to have for my Patreons only. So sign up at patreon.com/misadventure in the classroom. So first of all, this knowledge may shape your life. So that's what these are, little ones down here, but I have bigger ones. This knowledge may shape your life. So anytime you walk into a critical classroom, this is the vibe, right? This knowledge, the story continues, right? The story isn't over. The story isn't just in our history books, in the textbooks, already petrified in the past. No, my friends. This knowledge is alive, and it's here for us to interact with in this moment, because this knowledge may shape your life. Whatever you're teaching is going to be we want it to be part of our kids' stories, right? We want our students to pick up the yoke of knowledge and say, you know what? Yeah, this knowledge does matter to me. We've looked at what's good about it. We've imagined different things. We've problematized it. And with enhancement, now we can say, okay, I'm carrying on this legacy of the good and getting rid of what's bad about this knowledge, right? So we want our kids to love math so they can use it in their life, so it can be part of their life story. So math is not over. Math is just beginning for these kids. This knowledge may shape your life. This alone is very exciting, but it's not even the best part. You guys, here's the best part. Your life may shape this knowledge. Can I get an amen, y'all? What? Your life may shape this knowledge. Hello. Who are some of the greatest thinkers in all these fields? I'm thinking of language. I'm a sucker for language. If Shakespeare didn't have the attitude of an enhancer, he would have never invented all these words we use today. It's crazy the amount of words that come out of our mouths that are with Shakespeare. I'm going to look them up because it blows my mind. Dr. Seuss did the same thing, where they invented new words because they were enhancers. They took what was good about the English language and they built upon it. Zora Neale Hurston added, oh my God, oh, just thinking about her gives me goosebumps. Our eyes were watching God. What have you read? Those flowery descriptions like no one else has ever done. By God, these fantastic builders of the English language were able to craft glorious works of art because they enhanced it, because they realized that, hey, my life can shape this knowledge. I'm not going to keep what always was. That's boring. We don't know any of those people's names, okay? We know people who enhance, who bring their own independent spirit to the knowledge and make it more human. They add their human touch to it and it makes it better every time. Now, granted, progress does not necessarily mean enhancement. Those things are different, and we can talk more about that in the weeks to come. That is a rant that I won't go on right now. But that should be kept in mind. Just because we've added on to something doesn't mean it's been genuinely enhanced. In fact, many times when we add on, it's problematic. So that's why teaching in schools should teach us what enhancement really is. How do we build on the good? What is good and what is bad? We're not handing out prescriptions. Once again, we're having conversations. What do you think is good? What do you think is bad? What have you lived that is good and lived that is bad? Y'all, we know humanization when we see it. Kids know humanization when they see it. My God, that is half the reason why I do this work, is because not half the reason. It's like half the reason I'm doing this right now is because kids have inspired me. Kids have showed me, wow, they have such a sense for goodness and joy. And like, yeah, do they need to be redirected? Pfft, of course. We all do. I need to be redirected sometimes. We all can't do this work on our own. We need to hold each other's hands, and that's fine. But it begins not by prescribing this is good, this is bad, but what is good, what is bad, which is like the heart of what education's always been about. Philosophy, the love of wisdom, that's always central to the love of wisdom, has always been what is good and what is bad. And as critical theorists, because we believe in action and that, okay, just knowing what's good and knowing what's bad isn't enough, we have to act. We have to use our power, our unique Shakespearean power. You can add new words to the English language too. Shakespeare, I don't believe in genius, y'all. I don't believe in it. I'm done believing in it. I'm not believing in it anymore. Yes, are some people gifted at particular things? Absolutely. The issue is not who's a genius and who's not a genius. I don't care for that. It's not a very good discussion to be having. Instead, the question should be not who's a genius, who not a genius, who not a genius. Instead, it should be what is your genius? Let's figure it out because it's in you. You have genius in you. Let's untap it. Let's figure out what it is. And we're only going to get to the heart of all these kids' genius if we tell them you can be an enhancer too. What do you want to enhance on? Because your individual perspective, your cultural capital, aka the toolkit that you and your unique historic moment and your unique place in time and space, you have crafted things. You have a life no one else has. You have eyes no one else has. You have a voice no one else has. You could notice something about this classroom lesson that no one else ever has because you are a special genius. We all are, okay? We all are. You can be Shakespeare too. You can be Zora Neale Hurston too. We all can be. Okay, so that's what enhancement is all about. Really getting into what it means to be a knowledge builder and carrying on this great legacy. Bless you, Webby. It's my dog. He just sneezed. Okay, so that's what enhancement's all about. Boy, oh boy, I could talk about it forever, but I won't. I'll stop myself. But hey, you guys, aren't these great? This knowledge may shape your life. Your life may shape this knowledge. So anytime kids walk into your classroom, they can know that both of these things, they can walk out with this kind of assurance. I love it. That shit is critical, yo. Okay. So now I'll stop rambling about my little enhance. Love that little dude. Okay. Dude being a totally non-gendered term. Dudes for everybody, dude. I'm a dude. You're a dude. He's a dude. She's a dude. We're all dudes. This is my knowledge of the people cards. Because forget geniuses. I'm not interested in genius. Well, I'm interested in each individual genius, not some hierarchy of superior beings who are all smarter than us at certain stuff. Not interested. I'm interested in the people. So I'm interested in knowledge that is of the people, by the people, for the people. All of these cards are filled with people who were flawed, who were not perfect angelic geniuses and were flawed just like you and me, but still had profound things to say. And so what I do every weekday, twice a day, as long as I can make money. So again, patreon.com/misadventure in the classroom. Please support this work, this critical work, because I think it's going to make a big difference. This is a shift. This is a big shift. And the RIPE critical knowledge building system can help you make this critical shift in schooling and the way we approach knowledge. Y'all, let's do it. So I'm going to toss these cards of all sorts of different great critical thinkers and philosophers. Toss it in, shake it up, even though it's silly. And they stay in the same place, probably. Slap myself in the neck and grab a card. Okay. Let's see what we got. Put my thumb. Oh, okay. Oh, no. I don't have the screen flipped. So I don't know if y'all can even read it. I can't read it. It's backwards for me. I've been shooting in a different camera that let me read it from the screen, but not this time. So have you read it? I'm going to read it now. Actually, I'll read my notes on the back first. Okay. It's talking about, my notes say this is about synthesis. So you think about that. Is this about synthesis? Historical synthesis, I say. And enhancing as a historical process, which I've been talking about. It's a legacy that we're continuing. So let me see if I agree with my past notes. All right. It's Paulo Freire. Oh, thank goodness. I would have felt bad if I hadn't had Paulo Freire in my first week of doing these videos, these critical videos. If he hadn't been a part of it, he came in at the last second, right before the buzzer. Here we go, Paulo Freire. You climb the mountain and discover that there is another one whose profile you could not yet see. Then, without rejecting the first dream, you discover that the first dream implies or demands that your dream be expanded into new dreams or visions. This is from We Make the Road by Walking, which is a great book by Paulo Freire and Miles Horton, who I had a quote from earlier this week, who are both amazing critical educators who, surprise, surprise, enhanced upon education and made it more awesome. They did awesome things. So I literally just this afternoon, I bet I could pull it up right now, came across a quote by Nelson Mandela who said the same thing. Wow, it's almost like humans come to the same conclusions a lot of times. We keep this knowledge is in us and we keep coming across it. Yes. Okay, let me read this Nelson Mandela quote that I just came across today. That's the same thing as Paulo Freire. Even though they lived in different parts of the globe, had totally different experiences, they still came to this conclusion because intelligence is not about genius. It's about thinking things through and being intentional, thinking things all the way through, being in depth, looking at what's important, thinking about the consequences, being your own independent self, and using your power to act out that knowledge. When you do these things, you end up coming to this wisdom. I was talking about love of wisdom earlier. Critical knowledge building is more than just facts. We're not just sharing, how to math. Why math is what we say. Why math? Why keep doing math? Why math in the past? Why math in the future? Why? And so by saying why, we transcend, we go above what knowledge is. We look at the context and we rise above knowledge and we level up. We transform knowledge into wisdom when we begin to ask why and think about the context and do these things, be critical, which also I will have up soon. This is a free critical thinking poster that I have not promoted once because I'm an educator and I don't know how to sell stuff, but this is a freebie that anybody can get. Hey, you adult who wants to learn things. This is for you too. Okay, let me read the Nelson Mandela quote because both of these thinkers, again, they took their knowledge, they thought in color, they colorfully used the colors of critical thinking, and they transformed knowledge into something greater, into wisdom. So here's Nelson Mandela saying the same thing. I have walked that long road to freedom. I have tried not to falter. I have made mistakes along the way. But I have discovered the secret after climbing a great hill. One only finds that there are many more hills to climb. I have taken a moment here to rest, to steal a view of the glorious vista that surrounds me, to look back on the distance I have come. But I can only rest for a moment, for with freedom comes responsibilities, and I dare not linger, for my walk is not ended. Nelson Mandela. That's the same thing. Literally the same imagery. You climb the mountain and discover there was another one whose profile you could not yet see. That's the thing. No matter how good knowledge is, we can't predict the future. So once we go through all these steps, we realize, oh my gosh, another step we have to take. We have to take this one step further every time. Anytime we do anything good, it's never enough. Zygmunt Bauman, I think I said that right. Zygmunt Bauman, a famous sociologist, once said, no society is ever just enough. As in, we're constantly going to be working to make society just. In the same way that knowledge will never be perfect, that will never be complete. Was it yesterday? Yes, it was yesterday. In the problematic video, I talked about Pluto. I love it. It's my favorite story. We freaked out. I think it still freaks us out. 8. It was supposed to be 9 planets. How could they shift this fact about my life? They've pulled the planetary rug out from underneath me. How can I live with only 8 planets? we kind of do feel that way. We feel shook when a fact gets pulled out from under us. It shakes our psyche. It messes us up, but not if we teach kids to be enhancers. Like, oh, someone who has been grounded in these critical concepts would be like, oh, yeah, did scientists decide to cut Pluto? Sure. They had to enhance. They had to enhance the way we view the world because it's never going to be good enough. And guess what? It's going to be the same with, as Zygmunt Bauman said, our laws. Just like, heck, if science needs to evolve, maybe our laws and cultural traditions will also need to evolve. And here's the thing with enhancement, I'm not saying just enhancing is good. As I said before, progress is not necessarily enhancement. It's not necessarily advancement. Just because we've slapped something new on, added a fresh new coat of paint to something doesn't make it better always. And often we leave better things in the past. Guess what? I talk about that with my touchstones, which I forgot to put up today. But in the class, there will be enhancement touchstones like this. These are the problematized ones. But I make those points as that, hey, the progress we've made, we might have taken a wrong turn somewhere down the line. We might have taken a wrong path to create this lesson that we created today. How could it have been better, right? That's what problematization is about. And then enhancement is actually enacting how it could be better. So just plowing ahead and not deeply considering what is good and what is bad, what should be kept and what should be left behind. We can't advance without having those critical conversations. So enhancement cannot be done without reverence. Okay. So I'm not shitting on conservatives who want to keep some traditions the same. In fact, I think that keeping things the same is often really important. Like if we look at indigenous peoples, they've been doing the work of conserving what is good, right? And that's great. I'm not saying we just trample over everything that's been done. No, no. In fact, even though I consider myself on the left, I can point to so many leftist mistakes. For example, a classic one was, I forget which socialist or communist society it was, but they were like, we're going to get rid of, I think it might have been Russia. I'm not sure. The Soviets. They were like, we're going to get rid of everything from the West. Everything. We're starting completely from scratch. And so I think they threw out the clock. And because, 12 and whatever, like, could that be more effective? Sure. But it ended up being kind of dumb. Like, we don't need to fix the clock. It's working fine. It's a good tradition. We don't need to problematize everything just because it's from something we don't like. No. Sometimes the best move is to revere something. There's a time and a place. There's a season for everything. There's a season for reverence. There's a season for problematization. There's a season for enhancement. And the thing is, it's always all these seasons. And we need to be shifting between these gears. We need to be imagining all four of these things are a dynamic living process. And we need to, just like with good and bad, we can't say it's always good to revere or it's always good to problematize. It's always good to enhance. Like, no, it's always good to imagine. Like, no, sometimes we need to be in the real world right now in this moment. We can't be imagining all the time. It isn't an all or nothing thing. There are contexts where each of these verbs is good and where each of these verbs just doesn't make sense. It's not going to be a humanizing act. So that's what critical education is all about. This is deep stuff. This is love of wisdom kind of stuff. Yo, there's a lot of philosophy back in the ripe critical knowledge building system. And I'm really excited for you to bring it to classrooms. Woohoo! So there's so much to conserve that is good about the human world. And we should keep those things. I don't want to get rid of good things. I want to keep good things. So the question then becomes, what is good and what is bad? A conversation which we can begin in childhood. We can start having that conversation so it's a lifelong conversation, because no society is ever just enough. No knowledge will ever be complete. Period. Sorry. Like even silly knowledge, like Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien. Okay, he wrote this amazing book. Are people still adding on? Yes, fan fiction. He created a world. He didn't say everything possible to say about Middle Earth. We have things to add about Middle Earth, right? That's what fan fiction's all about. And like, is there good fan fiction and bad fan fiction? Yeah. Did they take out good parts? And like, if we got rid of Gandalf and made a whole new story series without Gandalf and say, this is progress, I'd say, no, it's not. This ain't no progress. Where's Gandalf the Grey and Gandalf the White? Bring those guys back into this story. Yeah, who did they cut from the Hobbit movie? They made 3 Hobbit movies. 3. Right? Or was it just 2? Whatever. They made plenty. They had hours of Hobbit movies, and they did not include Tom Bombadil. Tom Bombadil is the best character in the Hobbit book. When I was a kid and I read that, I loved Tom Bombadil. I never wanted to leave Tom Bombadil's cabin, his pasture in the forest. I never wanted to leave it, and they made 3 movies. Is this progress? That's what I have to say. I don't think that Hobbit movie was enhancing at all. They had to add in the whole white orc and a whole love story between an elf and a dwarf because they decided not to include Tom Bombadil. This is not enhancement. I love Martin. Is it Martin Short? Is that? No, that's not right. That's not the right guy. But it is Martin. Martin, and he is short, but it's not Martin Short. I love those actors, okay? No problem with the actors. The movies are fine, but they could have been better. Were they enhancing them? Were they? No. No, I say. But I will watch them again. And also, I would have fallen in love with that dwarf too. He was pretty cute. Okay, rant over. So progress is not necessarily enhancement. The Hobbit trilogy flippin' proves it. No hate, but come on. Tom Bombadil. R.I.P. Never got to live on the big screen. Anyway, okay, let's stop talking about this. I did my card. We talked about Paulo Freire and the mountain and how there's always another mountain to climb. Well, now we're going to have to make a better Hobbit movie. You see what I'm talking about? Even though we got to the end of these Hobbit movies and they were fine, we're going to have to do it again in the future because we did not have Tom Bombadil. So there are always more hills to climb. We will always find things that are not just enough. I want to put my human hands on the Hobbit story and make it right. They didn't do it right. According to me, I'm sure many people love it. And so that's why we have to have a conversation about what is good and what is bad, because it's a conversation. Some people may disagree with my opinion, though I'm completely right. All right, well, now that I'm in a flippin' Hobbit huff, I will go ahead and sign off for the week and refresh myself over the weekend, not by watching those Hobbit movies. Okay, well, that is it for this time. Keep an eye out because this Ripe Critical Knowledge Building System will be up in the link below soon. So please support this work and enhance the way you teach. Enhance the way you teach because everything's got to be leveled up, yo. That's what humans do. We level up. All right. So thank you for joining me for this lovely teach time in the afternoon. I am Miss Adventure in the Classroom, and I will see you next week. Bye. How do I end this one? Ah, there it is. Bye-bye.